All right, hey everyone, it's Drew from Animal Adventures. Today we're going to be continuing the pets videos. We got some lizards for you to meet today. All right, so this one is a leopard gecko. These are one of the more popular pet lizards that you're going to see. A lot of people get leopard geckos. They're pretty much sold in every pet store too, so that's one of the main reasons why you can find them so readily. And leopard geckos are in the wild. They're found in the Middle East. So you can find them in Afghanistan and all the countries neighboring Afghanistan, that sort of area. And they're awesome pets. They're pretty docile. Every once in a while you might get one that is kind of sassy, but really for the most part, if you handle them regularly, they're going to be pretty chill. So you really just want to work with them just like you would with most pets. They're not going to be friendly right away. That's not typical for a lot of animals when you first get them. You're going to have to work up to it. And with leopard geckos, you can see that really chunky tail there. Leopard geckos have a pretty interesting looking tail. It's almost like a leaf shape, and it's very, very squishy. It's pretty much just a big fat deposit for them. And these guys are one of those lizards that can drop their tail. So if a predator were to bite them on their tail, or if a human were to grab it, or if it got caught in something, they can just release their tail and it will fall off. And a lot of times it's going to wiggle a little bit too to kind of keep the predator enticed. They might eat the tail, giving the leopard gecko a chance to run away. And the cool thing about leopard geckos is that when they do lose their tail, it will regrow. So pretty much for geckos, if it's a non-prehensile tail, and I'll explain that more with our next lizard, it has a chance to grow back. If it's a prehensile tail, it might not always grow back. So it really depends on the gecko that you have. And what else about it? Let's see. Their eyes are pretty interesting. These guys here have eyelids. A lot of geckos don't. They're one of the few that do. They might be the only one that does. And those eyelids allow them to fully open their eye just like we do. So they can blink perfectly normal. Most geckos cannot, and that's the deal with the next lizard too. So I'll explain that more with that one when I take it out. But if you do get a leopard gecko as a pet, they're pretty easy to maintain. You're going to want most likely a tank or just a nice big open area. We have ours on a sandy substrate, and they get fed crickets. So this is one where you're going to have to give them live insects. You can get like the dehydrated ones too, but the live are always more nutritious for them. And if you get the insects, excuse me, you're going to want to dust them with calcium powder too. So you're going to cover them with calcium, and then it will give them all the extra nutrients that they need. All right, we're going to move on to the next lizard now. This one here is another awesome gecko. This is another great beginner one too. So this is a crested gecko, an eyelash crested gecko, and they come from the island of New Caledonia. So it's off the coast of Australia, and they get their name. So if you want to come nice and close, you can see right above their eye, they have little flaps of skin. It looks like eyelashes. They're not actually eyelashes, but it's just little flaps of skin. So it gives them that perfect nickname. And with their eyes too, they have huge eyes, really big eyes with that almost cat eye pupil. And their eyes do not have eyelids. So instead of blinking their eyes to clean them, these guys have to lick their eyes. So it's kind of nasty, but they'll stick out their really long tongue and wrap it all around the eyeball and get them nice and clean. And this one does have a nice long tail. You can see it's a prehensile tail. So if I hold on there, you can hang right from my finger with this tail. So it's very strong. Then you notice that those hands just cling right on too. So with crested geckos, on their hands and on their fingers, they are covered in tons of little tiny hairs. They're called cilia, and they are rubbed together, making static electricity. So if we show right on, let's see, maybe next to our big poster here, I'll put them on the wall, and you should be able to see them climb right up the wall. So they can cling right to any surface and they're good to go. It's really, really useful, especially where they live. They're going to be spending most of their time high up in the trees. That's their natural habitat. So they're going to want to have a lot of climbing things, excuse me. So if you have a crested gecko as a pet, rather than a nice wide tank, you're probably going to want a really tall tank, or even just like a mesh enclosure that doesn't have too big opening. And you're going to have lots of climbing materials in there. And another important thing too is keeping them nice and moist inside of their environment. So we have a dripper on top of ours that has a constant dripping stream for them. But then we also mist it down very, very thoroughly a few times a day. And it keeps it nice and moist, and it's the perfect humidity for them. And these ones are great. They're probably one of the best if you don't like having bugs at your house. These guys don't eat a lot of bugs. So mostly for them, we're gonna give them mashed up fruit or even a scoop of baby food. So we usually just take a banana, mash it up good and cover it in that calcium powder, or you can use a scoop of that like fruit baby food and that'll be perfect as well. You can buy Crested Gecko diet too from the pet store online, but the regular fruit works just as well. That's a great thing as long as you add on that calcium powder. So I'm gonna stick this little guy back and we'll move on to our next one. Right now, this is probably one of my favorite types of lizards. I've done this guy a couple times for these videos, I think, but this one here is a bearded dragon. Bearded dragons are a type of lizard from Australia, and they're a lot of fun to have. They're very, very chill. They like to just rest right on you, but they seem to have more of almost like a personality to them. They're pretty curious. They're always looking around, and it's a lot of fun too when you have their food for them because they go on like a crazy hunt for it. I always hunted down those crickets or mealworms, or even just, I one time had this guy on a table with me, and I had a chunk of apple, and he charged at that thing and wanted that apple. So pretty much anything that they can eat, they will definitely want to try and eat. But these guys, like I said, are from Australia. They live in the Australian outback where it's very, very dry. So a big thing for them is keeping them on a nice dry substrate, and then also having a heat lamp going for them. So that's going to mimic like the natural UV rays of the sun, which will help their skin, help their just overall health, especially being a cold-blooded reptile. These guys do need that extra heat to maintain a body temperature. Otherwise, their body could get too cold. And let's see. This guy here is almost all full grown. So he could get a little bit bigger, but he's, let's see. That's like a pretty average size for like a full-grown adult. You can get some that get significantly larger. We've had a few that have gotten really big, and those are typically called German giants, which is a variety of bearded dragon, like a breed. And those ones are bred more in captivity. So they get pretty big, very hefty all around, very, very chunky. But you can see on the side here, he does have all these spines. So they're actually not sharp at all. When I touch them, they don't hurt me. The back actually hurts a little bit more than the sides do. So they're very, very smooth. They're made of keratin, so same as your fingernail. If you go backwards on his back, you have a pretty hard time getting all the way up. But if you go down, you're gonna be good to go. And then these spines, like I said, are very soft. The main purpose for those spines are actually a couple purposes. One, they look kind of scary. So I like to say it's just like a cactus. If you saw a cactus, you probably would not want to take a bite out of it. Same with this guy. It doesn't look as enticing. But the most important thing for them, it helps them collect water. So in the outback of Australia, it really does not rain that often. So when it does, these guys will lean forward like this. Water will collect all on their back. And then the spines make a natural groove right to their mouth. So it takes it all the way down, and they can drink it up with the corner of their mouth there. So sometimes we'll just mist down their enclosure, not enough to really soak their substrate, but just enough to kind of mist on their back and on their food. It's almost like a natural little sprinkling happening outside. It really gets them extra moisture. And then the cool thing about them, the reason they get their name bearded dragon is because this area here is known as their beard. So if they get scared or angry or just super excited or even flirty, they'll puff out that beard and it turns black. So it's already pretty dark in color, as you can tell, but it's darker underneath those scales. So when they inflate it, the dark scales will be exposed and it makes them look pretty intimidating. So that's why they get their name bearded dragon. But honestly, if you're gonna get a pet lizard, any of these guys are excellent options, but my personal choice, I would go for a bearded dragon. They're a lot of fun to sit right on your shoulder. They'll watch TV with you. They might whisper in your ear and be like, hey, change the channel. This is kind of boring. So it's just a fun one to have with you. But cool. So again, these were the lizards that I had today. Any questions, feel free to send them through, comment them on the video. We'll get back to you. And we are still taking tours and booking those Zoom shows and future tours, future shows as well. So thank you all for watching. My name's Drew, and we'll see you next time.